Good evening and welcome to Castle Buckula.
We're doing a little web program thing for the YouTubes where one of us introduces the other to a film that the other one has seen and the other one hasn't, and then we talk about it afterwards. So we're starting off with a film that I love and that Tim hasn't seen, which is Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yes, and I've been wanting to see this film ever since I was a wee barn.
And I first saw this film when I was a wee barn. I first saw this film when I was about 5 years old. I think it was a school holiday. I wasn't off sick. It was a school holiday, and it was on the big clunky telly we had at home on a Tuesday afternoon. And I remember being riveted because it starts off. You'll see, but that isn't a spoiler. But it starts off. The opening credits is a cartoon. So I thought I was going to watch a kiddies cartoon about the monsters.
The Pink Panther effect. When I was little, whenever the Pink Panther film started, I got excited because I thought it was the Pink Panther cartoon. And because I was too young to understand the genius of Peter Sellers, when the film started, I was always disappointed that it wasn't a cartoon all the way through.
Yeah, indeed. We all think that about the Steve Martin one. Yeah, so I remember sitting watching it, and it was the first time I ever saw the Universal Monsters. It's actually the end of the Universal Monsters series, but it was the first one I ever saw. It stands on its own. And that's when I fell in love with them. And then in about 4 years, when I was about 9 or 10, BBC Two ran the Universal Monster series on a Friday night. It was like the 11 o'clock movie, and my mum let me stay up late to watch it. And they showed them in order as well, so it was one a week. So that's how I got into that, and now I'm massively interested in those films and the characters in the films, but also the stories around the making of them, etc. So I cannot wait for you to see this.
I've always wanted to see it because it's the only other film where Bella played Dracula.
That is a fascinating fact, and it's true. Bella played other vampires, but he only played Bela Lugosi only played Dracula twice. Once in Dracula, and then in this is his second go at it.
I remember it was always the one we never had because they never released it as part of the Universal box set.
Yeah, it's not in the. I've got the Universal Monsters DVD box set.
You've got loads of them. Like every year, whenever there was an anniversary or something, you never got Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
It always cuts out at House of Dracula, which is not so glorious.
Literally, my entire life I've been waiting to watch this film.
And now we're going to do it.
Over 20 years.
20 years waiting is about to come to an end for this man, as we sit down to watch Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Let's do it to it. I'll think of a catchphrase at some point.
Yeah, one better than that.
To the laboratory!
Let's go down to the crypt. Oh shit! Tim's just watched Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein for the first time. What do you reckon, Tim?
That's a fresh cup of coffee, by the way. That isn't the same one from earlier. That would be grim. I thought it was good.
I'm sensing reticence.
I'm sure if I saw it when I was 10 years older, it would have been a lot better.
You've got to know what you're watching. You're watching a film.
Oh yeah, it's a film from the 50s, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
It shouldn't be called Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, because they don't meet Frankenstein, they meet the Frankenstein's monster.
If you've not seen it, they meet the monster, the Frankenstein monster, the Wolfman, and Count Dracula.
And if anything, Frankenstein's monster's in it the least.
Absolutely,
than everyone else. He's only really in it in the last 5 minutes.
He's kind of like zombified for the whole film, and at the end he gets as he was in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. At the end he gets woken up, and then the climax is everyone running away from him as he sort of lumbers along like this kind of... Glenn Strange plays the monster in this.
When I was little, Glenn Strange used to be my favourite, my second favourite monster, because I used to think he was the one that looked the most like Boris Karloff, who was the original monster. And he was tall, and I always thought he had like the best face for it. But watching it now as an adult, he's more Herman Munster than he is the Frankenstein monster.
He's not good. I have to...
The clunky moving and the faces. And...
This is the second film... The Frankenstein monster only speaks twice in the whole Universal film series. He speaks in Bride of Frankenstein. He's quite erudite in Bride of... He actually learns to talk.
He speaks at the end of House of Dracula, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't.
Igor will live forever!
He speaks with Igor's voice at the end of The Ghost of Frankenstein, because he gets a brain transplant. He's got Igor's brain in him. So he opens his mouth. It's Lon Chaney playing the monster in that one. And he opens his mouth and he speaks with Bela Lugosi's voice. But, poor Bella. Yeah, in this one he actually has one line which he says twice. Yes, master. The makeup process was much easier. In the previous Universal Monster films, the makeup was quite a horrific process to go through. It took hours for them to get the like every individual yak hair to be glued to Lon Chaney Jr.'s face. And
I like how
in this film, it's all foam.
but Lon Chaney's sort of restful transformations.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm turning, and then he sort of fall asleep so that he can do the transition shot and just relax into it. Like,
There's also this weird thing that Lawrence Talbot, the Wolfman, has not learned in his years as the Wolfman.
hundreds of years, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, this is modern time.
Yeah, he is immortal. He hasn't learned when he's going to turn into the Wolfman. So he kind of does this thing where it's like, he's surprised when the full moon comes. Like the best sort of horror comedies, it doesn't mock the monsters, which I quite like. It doesn't make them...
There is a bit where he does kick the Wolfman up the arse.
There's one bit where he does kill.
Hey,
The Wolfman gets his
one
head...
of those.
Maybe I'm wrong, because the Wolfman does get his head stuck in a tree, and Lou Costello does kick him up the arse, believing it to be his friend in a wolf mask. And the Wolfman doesn't turn around and tear out his throat pipe, but just kind of stands up and goes... like,
Because it's 20 years after the original Dracula, the production values or the production quality is a lot better, and it's kind of a shame you never did get a straight better Dracula film from later on in that era.
yeah. No, it's lovely. It was lovely to see him back in that part. He was obviously gypped when they replaced him, because Dracula returns to the Universal Horror series in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, but he's played by David Carradine's dad, John Carradine, who's bloody awful in it. He's got this sort of white moustache, and this American actor doesn't even try. And he wears a top hat, and he's not a good Dracula. Though his son was great in Kung Fu. The plot is they're trying to get Lou Costello's chick's brain into the monster. That is literally the plot. There's no other kind of...
Also the plot to every other Frankenstein sequel.
I'm not quite sure
made.
what Dracula hopes to accomplish by having a lumbering manservant. How that's going to enhance his effect.
But like, the brain he's got already is surely fair enough. He's already completely submissive to them. Yes, master. Like, what else does he need?
Because Dracula appears to have some sort of like iPhone charger in his spring that he uses to charge the monster's neck to wake him up a little bit. Here's a fascinating fact from the laboratory scene at the end. There's this moment where the monster throws the evil woman scientist through a window, and that one shot in the film is not Glenn Strange playing the monster. Glenn Strange sprained his ankle filming the scene where he was smashing up the lab, and they had to get that one shot to explain where she goes. So for that one shot, it's Lon Chaney Jr. playing the Frankenstein monster for the second time.
It's quite noticeable because he's about a foot shorter. And
yeah, he's a foot shorter, and it's Lon Chaney Jr. And if you look for it, you can see it's his face.
There's a character in it called McDougal. He's like the atypical angry man who hires Bud and Lou to look after the crates. McDougal, at the beginning he says, "Do you know what's in these crates? It's the remains of the Frankenstein monster and Dracula." So McDougal knows what's in there, and he knows that they're real. So surely he should be hiring armed transport or guards to be looking after this fucking... these immortal demons that have been chronicled to be killers and psychopaths.
The idea you can buy the remains of creatures of legend. This is even before the internet.
It's not eBay, it's like...
I just bought the remains of Frankenstein's monster, the creature that he brought to life from dead bodies in Gadaras. So rather than studying it scientifically, I'm going to put it on display in my waxwork museum next to Dracula's coffin with Dracula in it. I'm going to keep closed.
And within 5 minutes, like... Lou's on top of the thing, shaking back and forth, whoa! Doing crazy adventures. McDougal catches them and gives them a slap on the wrist, but doesn't think these aren't the guys for the job. Like, maybe I should hire someone who's a bit more responsible. It's just... McDougal is so angry. Like, he goes from naught to fucking...
Yeah, the character McDougal is like, naught to, like, from placid to furious in the space of 30s. And the amount of physical
grabbing
assault...
people by the neck and threatening to sack them in the...
But that's throughout this film, if Lou Costello is not being grabbed by McDougal to beat him up, he's being grabbed by Lawrence Talbot to make a point. Don't you understand? Why don't you believe me? It's nearly the full moon, and I'm going to be surprised to see in about 30 seconds time. Peaceful transition.
And he's always by a window when it happens as well, so everybody can work out what's going on.
But the comedy's great. You've got Bud and Lou, like they're constantly talking like they're on stage in a Las Vegas nightclub. It's constantly like, well, you do this and I'll do that.
I want to live my life like that.
Yeah,
It's constantly both of us facing one way, just talking and
delivering
sound bites.
delivering zingers and getting involved in shtick with cupboard doors. Ah, shit! Their whole life is lived like they're doing Who's On First.
That's my first ever Abbott Costello film, and all I've seen before that was Who's On First. That's the only thing I knew about.
You've never seen any Abbott and Costello film?
No.
Or the TV series?
No.
Oh, mate, get online.
Actually funnier than I thought they would be.
Absolutely brilliant. It's set when it was filmed, an era that I would love to live in as well. I love the clothes and the way it looks.
Well, the 50s.
Oh yeah, 50s America, 50s sunshiny America.
Not 50s England.
Not 50s England.
Rolled up sleeves and suspenders and
going to the
flat caps and mines.
Yeah, which we're returning to now. There's a surprise ending. There's a twist at the end if you haven't seen it. Spoilers. Spoilers. We're not done with the monsters.
Brings together the universe.
It does indeed. After Dracula and the Wolfman have dispatched themselves in the clumsiest climax to any monster film ever, where it's literally, the Wolfman and Dracula plunge to their deaths because the Wolfman does a pratfall out of a window, and as he's falling, he grabs Dracula, who is transformed into a bat, and they both drown. And then the monster dies horrifically. Having established in previous films the monster is terrified of fire, when the hero, the scientist hero, sets fire to the pier that the monster's on, the monster turns and just walks back into the flames.
As calm as
For
can
no
be.
reason, but I'm just going to do this. Why not? Why would I panic?
Surrounded by water.
Surrounded by water. Doesn't think to jump to the side like McDougal just has.
And everyone else. Walking towards the light.
The final shot is Bud and Lou are in a boat where Bud Abbott is rowing, but the boat is just clearly not moving. And I forget the exact dialogue. It's something like Costello goes, "Well, they won't chase us anymore." And the final sting is you hear the voice, "I was hoping to get in on all the excitement.
I'm the invisible man."
Permit me to introduce myself."
You see a little cigarette floating.
There's a floating cigarette. Because the Invisible Man, who we know is nude, because that's the only, he's invisible, so he takes his
There's
clothes
no
off.
clothes, just nothing.
But he's managed to get a cigarette and a lighter that he's carried with him into this boat. He's assuming it's a
She's
cigarette.
smuggled into the boat.
He's sparked up at the
Mewed
end.
into it.
Oh, I was hoping to join in on the fun. Like,
What was he doing in the boat? Was he fishing in the Gulf? Was
where's he been for the whole film? Who's played by Vincent Price?
that his plan all along? Just this elaborate setup so Bud and Lou were getting a boat with him. Was he sat bonnet naked?
Ew, he permits me to get. Hello, boys, tickling their ears. This is the film where the character actors were their most comfortable physically because Jack Pierce had retired and the makeup was done with latex. It wasn't the usual.
Looks it too. It looks like.
And it looks it. If you watch it, if you look and compare the Wolfman in the Wolfman and the Frank to this Wolfman, you can kind of see lines where it's sort of been stuck on, and Glenn Strange looks like his square head has been sort of put on at a funny angle. Lugosi's wearing makeup to make him look younger.
No.
He played Dracula in Dracula. He has no makeup, quite famously. He doesn't have any fangs or anything. But in this one, he's clearly got like white face on and some dark around his eyes. If Twilight teaches us one thing, it's that every single film has its own individual laws of vampirism.
There should be a set rule list.
In this particular
Vampire
film,
101.
in this particular film, vampires have no fangs, and they can transform into cartoons.
Cartoon bats.
Which is what he does. When Dracula turns into a bat in this particular film, he does the thing with the cape.
Which,
then he turns into a cartoon and sort of... It's like early CGI.
It looks infinitely better than the original bat on a bit of string bouncing up and down.
The bat's amazing. The bat is a good special effect.
Yeah.
And that transformation with the car, I actually quite like that. It looks like I said, early CGI. He kind of it turns into an animated Dracula, then he sort of morphs into a bat, then turns into a real bat and flies off. So that's it. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
It's very good if you haven't seen it and you're a fan of cinema, because it's quite an interesting time.
I love it. I think it's a funny film. It's a great way to say goodbye to the Universal monsters.
It's nice because it was around that time they were starting to verge on the sense of parody, so it was nice of them to kind of get themselves first.
Yeah, somebody else making a spoof of their own. They decided to send themselves up and go out on a high note.
It was a send-up. It was a send-up done with love rather than.
It is very much.
mockingly.
It really is a film. Yeah, you can tell that watching it. It really is a film that's been made out of a very, a place of caring about all these characters.
Yeah.
And Abbott and Costello, everything about it. There's care in this film.
It's respect.
Respect. Do watch it. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. It is wonderful. So that's the first one of these we've ever done. We're going to do some more of these, and we're looking forward to it, like enhancing our own production values, and
Yes.
hopefully going out on a high note ourselves without somebody parodying us. So,
We'll end this on our own terms.
Until next time, I'm Danny.
I'm Tim.
And that was what the Bucklers saw. All the best.
Keep looking for it. I'll think of a catchphrase.
Yeah, please.